Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your fave film critic, the podcast starring and hosted and produced and recorded and conceived and lorded over by yours truly, Dom Griffin, your favorite film critic. And we got a new episode for you right now, whatever time it is that you are listening to this, because time is relative. So right now for me is not going to be when you hear it, it'll be later. Yeah, so I got a lot to talk about this week. Before I get into it though, on last week's episode, I talked about how we did a big reunion episode of Triple Beam Streams, and I am excited to say that it's out. It's out now. It came out maybe a couple of days after the episode, and I'm really excited about it. We got a lot of really good feedback on it. I had a blast doing it. So I'll link it in the description, again, in the show notes, if you're listening to this and not watching this. And it's on the Black Print Radio YouTube channel. And we haven't figured out what we're gonna do with it, but we're gonna do more. This was, I think, conceived as something of a one shot, but we had so much fun and people seem to, just be clamoring for the boys to be back in town. So there will be some new stuff coming up soon. I'm not sure what the cadence for that's going to look like, but if you're into that, there's more coming, because it was a blast. I love doing anything with those guys, and most people seem to like it too. So that's always really good. So yeah, if you have not checked that out, it's on YouTube. It's on all the podcast it's all over the place, and I'll link them in the description, and you guys can check it out. Me, Justin, Pafif, Eric, all back together talking about Dune, among other things. We will be doing some more talking about Dune on this week's episode of the podcast, because I saw Dune again and I have a lot to say about it. So we're not really going to have a news section this week. There wasn't a lot of stuff in the news that I want to talk about. The only things happening in the news, we'll just, okay, this is the news section now. We're jumping into things. The only things I really wanted to talk about that were actually genuinely news related is Spike Lee's got a new movie coming out with Denzel Washington that is a remake of Kurosawa's High and Low. I think it's called Highest to Lowest. The number 2, not T-O, which just sounds rad. And I love Spike. He hasn't made a movie with Denzel since Inside Man. I think that's probably going to be, sight unseen, I'm going to assume, the best Spike movie in years. And pretty stoked about that. No details about this beyond that it's happening, but Wong Kar-wai is returning with a new film, his first feature since The Grandmaster, which I quite liked. Don't know anything about it. Who knows when it's actually going to come out. With Wong Kar-wai, you literally never know how long one of these productions can go. But excited for that to be happening. And then also, the god Connor O'Malley has made a movie that sounds very intriguing to me. I think Connor O'Malley is one of the most interesting, gifted comedic voices in the world right now. So I'm stoked to see what him doing a movie would be. I think it's going to be pretty cool. But beyond that, and I don't know, some trailers and shit, I don't really have anything news-wise to talk about, but I have a lot to say about some stuff that's been going on in the world of discourse. Longtime listeners of the podcast know that I both loathe discourse, and yet I'm oddly drawn to it, and oftentimes spend a lot of my time and energy thinking about it and why it is so poisonous and how it becomes as bad as it is. So, we're going to lock into some of that right now. So this will probably branch off in a handful of tangents, but the thing that we're going to start to talk about is we had a bit of a conversation on Triple Beam Streams about the sort of how there's been a democratization in media, where people can get access to celebrities and to different things with a lower barrier than there used to be. And that in some ways is good, because it means people can kind of really build something for themselves without knowing anybody, literally just off the strength of their own charisma or their talent or their creativity or whatever, which in the abstract is a good thing, I suppose. But the flip side of that is that now there are a lot of people who have access to a world that like, anyone could look at and go, well, how did you fucking get here? And you don't have to look further than just anytime you see any like TikToker at a movie premiere interviewing some celebrity on the red carpet. And it's like, again, I don't want to say that, I mean, people are using the word TikToker with the same derision they used to reserve for YouTuber, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't think that the platform itself is the problem or anything like that. It's just that very often the sorts of people that have been able to parachute themselves, or I don't know, maybe not parachute, like catapult themselves into like that sphere from their own stuff. A lot of those people aren't necessarily like really, like, I don't want to say like they have to have some kind of special credentials or credibility, but it's like oftentimes they just don't know shit, and we've seen some pretty torturous instances in recent memory of like some famous movie talker on a red carpet or like at some kind of event doing some kind of sponsorship thing and like just being a goof, and it's lame. But this week, after we had talked about that type of stuff, there was, and we also in that episode talked a little bit about Letterboxd and how like what Letterboxd is doing with their social media and stuff to kind of expand their reach is that they're kind of very sort of targeting and pinpointing sort of like a youth side of the movie internet, which is probably a smart thing to do. But that trend that's come from them of people asking people their favorite movies on red carpets is like kind of, I think, expanded even beyond them. That's just become like a more standard question now because of those Letterboxd Fave 4 videos that have happened. And Austin Butler was somewhere being asked this question, and Austin Butler, when his like, we can't call it the Elvis voice anymore because it doesn't really sound like Elvis anymore. He just sounds like very kind of intense and like just real. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can't do Austin Butler's voice, but I've listened to him speak a lot in the last week. And anyway, he was being interviewed, and when he was naming his favorite movies, one of the movies, like I think it was, they asked him what was his favorite movie when he was a kid, and he said The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is, like a classic, like an unadulterated, like I feel like a pretty universally agreed upon great movie. And a handful of people like stitched it on TikTok, and specifically, I don't remember the guy's name, and I'm not gonna like name him because like whatever, but there's a semi-popular TikToker, like I followed him for a while. I'd only ever seen this guy make videos where he would do like parodies of like lip syncing to songs and showing like how they were recorded or whatever, and like just stuff like that, or like that kind of content. He made a lot of videos where it was like The Weeknd recording a song in the booth, and then like it's just a video of him lip syncing a Weeknd song and like looking really sultry and stuff. That was like the shtick that I found him through. Who knows what other niche he crawled for himself in the time since I'd seen him on my For You page. But anyway, that guy, I was like, oh, that's that like Weeknd sing guy. What's he doing commenting on movie shit? I don't know, whatever. He stitched the thing of Austin Butler saying Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and it was just kind of like shaking his head and like disappointed and annoyed, and kind of was just like, just say Toy Story or something, and like, I think the caption was he had to dig real deep for that one. And other people had done a similar thing where they had made like TikTok jokes where it's like a sketch of someone acting out a filmmaker or an actor on a red carpet being asked that question, and they're just naming like made up foreign films and stuff. And it's like, oh, these people are all so pretentious. Just say what your real favorite thing is. And it's such a like, kind of actually sort of depressing thing that a movie star could say that a favorite movie of his when he was a kid was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, like an extremely famous and popular Western starring Clint fucking Eastwood. And then there's going to be someone on the internet now who's like, oh my God, like, why are you trying to get so much clout off of pretending to like this hugely likable action-packed Western? Like it was crazy to me. And so inside baseball, whenever for the pod, since I do this like once a week, and I'm always worried that it's going to be time to record an episode and I'm not going to know what to talk about, throughout the week, if something happens or I see something, I'll make like a little note like, oh, hey, you should talk about this in the pod. You should talk about this in the pod. So like the day this happened, I made a note, Dom, you should talk about this in the pod. And I was like, cool. Thanks, past me, or at the time, present me. And, in the time since I made that decision, like I'll talk about this in the podcast, I have so many thoughts about this phenomenon. discourse around this thing blew up to the point of like, I think I actually ended up seeing more people commenting on how dumb that TikTok was than I did the discourse that I was going to comment on. Cause like there is, I think, like a really serious and kind of depressing thing going on where, and just culture as a whole, I think right now, where people are like deeply incurious about anything that they're not already into. And anytime someone talks about something that they are not super familiar with, that they don't know about, rather than just kind of be like, oh, I don't know what that is, I'm gonna go Google that, they become very defensive and just accuse people of like being fake or like trying to sound smart or trying to seem cool or trying to seem hip or trying to get clout. I don't know what kind of clout you get for allegedly pretending to like a Clint Eastwood movie, but whatever the fuck, okay? So this discourse spread like wildfire of like a bunch of, and again, the way all this shit works is it's very possible that this didn't really blow up like that. It's just that maybe I was fed a lot of this content because I was already liking it, and then they just gave me more, you know, which is unfortunate. But there seems to be this, there's just this thing now where when I was younger, when people would talk about like film bros and what film bros liked, there was sort of like a universally agreed upon thing of what a film bro was. You know, it was like someone that like really liked Fight Club and a lot of like IMDb top 250 movies and stuff. And they were generally kind of curious about a wider array of film. They were someone who basically only liked, you know, kind of like guy movie, like popular, kind of edgy, like, you know, the shit that I feel like a film bro used to be like a guy from college who liked Pulp Fiction, and then a guy who like likes all the movies you get into when you first get into movies. You know what I mean? Like you first really like these handful of films and filmmakers, and they just stick to that. They never like, kind of get away from it. That's what I think a film bro used to be. But somewhere along the line, it became just like anyone that fucking likes movies, anyone that is remotely knowledgeable about movies. And I guess I got to be clear that like there's branches of this where there's like some people, anyone who is like a guy and very like male about the way they talk about movies becomes a film bro, even if the movies they're being a film bro about is like a guy being a film bro about like, you know, like Claire Denis films or something. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like we can all get together and agree that if you like Claire Denis, that does not mean that you, like, I don't know that we have to call that film bro. I feel like there has to be a different term for that, like, or a different something, because I don't know that we should group in, you know, like the guy who like really likes the Snyder Cut with the guy that really liked, you know, Beau Travail. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, you know, I happen to like Claire Denis in the Snyder Cut, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like those aren't, if you're going to be like publicly denigrating those people, they're like different people. But there's this other side of it too, which is that anything that someone is like, that someone likes something that's not from a few years ago, or not a superhero movie, or not something broad that everybody like, you know, knows, it becomes like, that's just pretentious. You're being pretentious. And it's like, I just don't know where, I mean, I know where, like I saw someone talking about this on Twitter, and they were like, a lot of people have this in their jokes, in the structure of these repetitive jokes, people will say, oh, this is like what film students are like. Oh, they only like depressing documentaries from Sri Lanka or something, like they don't like superhero movies or whatever. And I saw another guy be like, no, like if you go to film school now, most of the people, they're there because they liked Avengers, not because they're really into like, you know, fucking Barry Lyndon or something, you know what I mean? And it's like, I think some of this is just born from like, one, there is a notable incuriosity just in culture right now of people not really wanting to like venture out from outside their comfort zone or try different things, and to consider anyone that does do that to be like an idiot or an asshole or something. But also it's like, there's not, even though technically there's like probably better access to movies than there's ever been, if you know, in terms of like, I don't know, just piracy or whatever, or just using the internet, you know, beyond looking at the first page of Google or whatever. But if for the most part, people don't like movies, they're watching movies on Netflix or Prime or whatever. And there's so many streaming platforms do not put any kind of emphasis on older movies. And it's this thing where like anything that is considered like a cult classic is like usually a movie that was actually like wildly successful when it came out. Like this cult classic that movie made, it was like the number 3 movie at the box office that year. It's not a cult classic. It's just more than 10 years old, you know? And it's kind of depressing to me just because I don't understand like what the jokes are supposed to be saying, you know what I mean? Or like what we're trying to, here's the thing. Okay. Here's part of what I'm talking about. Okay. On Twitter, a lot of times you'll see a joke or like a meme or something that kind of catches on. And whatever the thing is, there is a finite number of variations on that one bit that people can do. And because there's, you know, hundreds of thousands, or I don't know how many actual active users that platform has anymore, there's a lot of people. Depending on how fast a meme or a joke gets out or picks up, it has a certain type of shelf life. So someone will have like a joke and then there'll be a bunch of variations of that joke. And if it happens too fast, by midday, people are sick of it because they've seen the full extent of the jokes we can make about this topic. And once it gets past like the sort of post-irony, putting that joke in a nesting doll of other tired jokes thing, it's like, okay, this is dead. Now we have to move on to something else. But I feel like the cycle keeps getting faster and faster for certain types of empty calorie digital distractions. So, for instance, this thing, like this, the favorite movie discourse thing, you know, maybe like the first time someone made one of those videos, it might have started out being kind of similar to like the real way people feel about film bros and such stuff like that. But then like more and more people see, oh, that's a funny thing, I have to do my variation of it. But more and more people do it that have even less knowledge or understanding of the thing that's being joked about. So they become even more watered down and like not realistic. And they just become like these, it's like, who is this for? This doesn't even feel like it's you. It just feels like you're trying to like ride the wave, you know? And this happens pretty frequently, I feel like, on like TikTok, where it happens like incredibly fast. And like on Twitter, when someone like does like there's like a bit or something and someone has like a bunch of quote tweets about it that are funny, when you see someone just doing the same bit that someone else has already gone viral for and they go viral on it again, you're just kind of like, all right, that's really hacky. Like you literally just took that tweet word for word. Like, oh my God, like it's so obvious. Whereas in TikTok, you'll see someone go and make a video on a trending sound and you go through the trending sound and every video is identical. It's just like, well, I have to do my version of it. It's like, yeah, but you're not adding anything to it. You're not bringing anything to it. You're just kind of like, yep, my turn. And continuing the Austin Butler thing, I kept seeing variations of the May Thy Knife Chip and Shatter scene from Dune Part 2. And like some of them are kind of funny and some of them are clearly like people kind of commenting on the sort of unintentional comedy in that scene, having seen the movie. And then some people taking it in different directions and doing little bits. But, you know, after the 8th one I saw, it became kind of like, wait, have you even seen Dune yet? Have you, and this isn't me being like, oh, did you read the book? Are you like a real Dune fan? I mean, like, you are joking about this in a way that makes me think you have not seen the movie. You have just seen other people joking about this and you feel like you have to jump in, even if you have nothing to add. And it's just very weird how often this happens and how no one is even like fucking trying to like do something. Like, I don't know. I saw one that I thought was kind of funny where it was a woman doing both sides of the May Thy Knife Chip and Shatter exchange. But when she did Austin Butler's character, when she did Fade Roth's half of it, she was using the like the kind of I don't know what you call it, but like that like, it's not like a speech impediment thing. Like it's like a voice that people use where you sound kind of like a kid. Where you say like frickin' and like you talk about like Fortnite and stuff. I don't know the actual, I can't think of what the actual origin of that is. But I just think it's a very funny thing. Like if someone does like a sketch where it's like a Bond villain, but the Bond villain is talking like a 14-year-old who's like really into Minecraft or something. Like, I don't know. I find that funny. So she did that and I was like, oh, that's cute. That's kind of funny. But then I saw like 6 other ones not long after that were just the same bit. It was just like, oh man, like he said this, I'm going to repeat the same thing back at him, you know? And it's like, yeah, okay. Like, yes, but I know that you fucking saw a video like that what compelled you to pick up your phone and go, I'm going to do that too? Like, it's like 500 fucking people collectively at the same time doing the same shot for shot remake of a barely funny 15-second video. Like, it's fucking crazy to me. And like, I understand that that's just sort of like a pretty common occurrence now on the internet. Like, I mean, I guess it's been like this for a long time and in various ways or whatever, but it's like, I feel like on Twitter, when you just blatantly steal someone's shit, people are in the comments like, bro, someone already tweeted this. What's wrong with you? And I know you saw it. Versus like you get to your 900th video on a trending sound and you're like, there should be like a way for the fucking thing to recognize that you didn't even change anything. Like, whatever. But that's so tangent here. But basically, to me, it's like these things are all kind of connected. It's like a lot of discourse now is here's the thing, a lot of discourse is already pretty fucking poisonous and bad anyway. There are a lot of people who are very pretentious. There are a lot of people who like to argue for argument's sake. There are a lot of people who, you know, the app sort of monetizes you being contrarian because more people engage with you, because more people want to go, hey, you're a fucking idiot. And you get a bunch of rent due tweets where people are just being argumentative just to get engagement. Like it's cursed. It's a fundamentally flawed and broken and dying platform, right? But there are things about it that have seeped into like this, sort of the same way that like a lot of the like worst things about Tumblr bled into Twitter when Tumblr took porn away. Like a lot of people left Tumblr and they were like, I can't see dicks, so fuck this shit. And they went to Twitter, and then all of a sudden you just started seeing certain types of arguments on Twitter that you would never have seen before because they all would have been on Tumblr. Like they would have been protected from the rest of us. And the same way that like Twitter is poisoned and weird and strange, it's like sometimes you see Twitter stuff bleed into TikTok, and it's just, or vice versa too. Like you'll see people take TikTok content out of context and post it to Twitter. And then it's like, okay, in the context of TikTok, if you like looked at this person's page, or you watched this video and you were only a swipe or two away from other videos that would have given this more context, and then a chain of comments explaining it, you're seeing a disembodied 30-second video. And it's being shared to an audience that was never intended for the people, whoever made that video originally. And it's just people being like, what the fuck is this? Oh my God, what the fuck? And like just freaking out and having fake outrage and stuff. So there's a lot of that. It's all very, very toxic. But what I find strange about the movie side of this is that this stuff was hitting me and coming into my various feeds later in the week. And I was like, why is this happening? And why is it bothering me more than usual? Because I've seen a lot of like terrible discourse and arguments and weird stuff. And this wasn't actually worse than that. Some goober influencer insisting that a movie star liking a classic Western is pretentious and that he should have said Toy Story is nowhere near top 100 of things that annoy the fuck out of me on the internet. You know what I mean? But I was like, why is this bothering me so much now? And I realized that until that had happened, most of the Dune discourse that I had seen, in terms of like just internet memes and jokes and stuff like that, was all like really fun and kind of infectious. And it felt really good to be a part of this larger thing where all these people were all seeing this big movie all at once, and they really liked it. And there was a lot of things about it they wanted to pick apart. And it felt like, you know, I mean, we've been saying it every like few weeks for like 3 years now, but it felt like the movies are back, you know, and it was a really good feeling. And I loved seeing people who had never fucking read Dune, never thought about Dune, had only recently watched Dune Part 1 even, seen Dune Part 2 and like really, really digging it and diving into it and having communication with people who have read the books, asking for clarification and stuff. It felt like there was a bunch of genuine and kind of cool and I guess like healthy conversation around the movie. And I thought it was really neat. You know what I mean? It felt like nature is healing. Like a bunch of like charming young movie stars are promoting this movie. They all seem likable and fun. The movie itself is really entertaining. It gives people a lot to talk about. People want to see it again. People want to dive into the theories. They want to see what's different from the book. They want to go you just see screenshot after screenshot of people being like, all right, I bought the whole fucking book series and I'm going to dive in. And it was like endearing to me. I thought it was really fun and fucking cool. But then I was like, okay, I've now seen, and there was a lot of really great Dune memes. There were so many really fun ones, things I was really into and I really was entertained by. And, you know, every group chat I'm in, we're all sharing Dune memes. It was just like fun. It felt like right. And then, midweek, it's like, hey, this movie has inadvertently started like this completely fucking stupid debate over like pretension and stuff. And and you'd start to see like the worst people getting involved and talking about it. And it was making me really bummed out. There were some negative aspects of the Dune discourse, and I'll talk about that later in the episode when I talk about Dune in the what I watched section, because I have some thoughts there and I want to make the whole thing fucking Dune. But seeing that shit, seeing the weird shit about people just like, oh my god, you have to reference some old movie, oh my god, some foreign movie, be regular. And you realize most people, when they say be regular, they mean like pick a fucking children's movie, pick a fucking kid movie, pick something with fucking flashy colors, pick something that has a Funko Pop, like pick some basic shit. And it's like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I watched fucking regular movies. And like, I kept seeing people coming out of the woodwork being like, yeah, when I was a kid, I watched kid movies, but my parents also watched normal movies with me. I saw normal movies when I was a kid. And part of me is like the iPad baby generation not watching regular movies? Like, are there like young guys growing up whose dads don't watch Westerns with them? Are there, you know what I mean? Like, I that's distressing to me. I can't describe or explain why exactly, but it's just, I feel like something's being lost, and maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's something important. Maybe I'm like pearl clutching about something that's like pretty niche or whatever, but it just really, really irked me. Cause I just remember when I was younger, I love movies. And like, when I got into movies, all I wanted to do for a long time was see more of them. And all I wanted to do was like just see stuff I'd never seen or experience things I never experienced. And I mean, I'm older now and I'm not as adventurous as I used to be. And I've talked at length on the pod and elsewhere on the channel about how I get in my fucking little moods where all I do is want to watch the same type of thing over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that. But to see young people or young-ish people who, like, in my mind should be more curious about stuff they don't know about, not being curious about the shit at all and like kind of demonizing it and having this kind of very conservative viewpoint about it just really bummed me out. It's like, that's the only way I can describe it, is it's like this sort of omnipresent recency bias where everything that is newish is better than anything that was old. And I'm not trying to do the my generation or I was different, but I don't remember things being like that. I remember being young and like really being into new stuff that you liked. But I don't remember me and my friends arguing against old stuff as much. I feel like we had slightly more respect for things that came before or things we watched when we were younger. So I don't know, just seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, it's not like Austin Butler said some weird shit. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a pretty fucking regular, normal thing, And even, you know what? Fuck it. If he did say some niche shit, he's a fucking actor. God forbid someone in the industry is like more well versed in the medium than you. Like, why? That should be a good thing. So I don't know. It was just kind of fucked me up. It just, yeah. I'm getting like hives thinking about it right now and trying to articulate. Like, I actually feel kind of like gross. That I wish it was easier to talk about things you like on the internet. Without having to encounter this shit is really all it is. And like I said, there are a lot of like, good communities I'm a part of and things are a little more closed off. They're a little safer and you don't have to encounter these people and stuff. But like, I don't know. I want to be able to have conversations online without feeling like I have to go hide in like a doomsday bunker to have them, So that's all I want to talk about this for a while. We're going to move on. So we're going to talk about what I watched this week, and I actually did watch several movies, for a change. I watched a bunch of stuff. So we'll lead off with saying that I intended to have a new video out this week because the Oscars are coming out on Sunday or happening Sunday. And I had wanted to do a video about all the Best Picture nominees, and I'd seen all of them except Past Lives and Zone of Interest. So my plan was to watch both of them and then make a video kind of like ranking them or whatever. I had some ideas for like a very kind of like clickbaity, sort of a very not me approach to talking about this subject, but I thought it'd be fun to like try. But then throughout the course of the week, all the different things I watched and did, I did not end up having time to watch Zone of Interest. And the primary reason for that is that like, I just did not fucking want to. A lot of people that I trust and whose taste I have the utmost faith in have told me they think it's a fantastic movie. So I'm sure it's very good. I'm sure I'm probably going to be very impressed by it. But at no point in the last 7 days was I in the fucking mood to watch that movie. Do you know what I mean? I was not. And when you hear the movies that I did watch, you'll kind of see like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a guy who was in a zone of interest headspace. So, unfortunately, after me saying all these things about why are people so incurious? Why don't they want to try things outside their comfort zone? Here I was all week refusing to watch a movie because I thought it would bum me out. So, but I did watch Past Lives. I watched that like Saturday night and I thought it was cool. I wasn't crazy about it. I think even if I had time to watch Zone of Interest, I don't think I would have ended up following through on this video idea because I realized I just don't actually have very strong feelings about any of the Best Picture nominees. I mean, like I really, really like half of them, and the other ones I think are fine. And it's just kind of like whatever. Like there's not really a sort of a villain in the nominees this year. I guess the closest thing is people that don't like Maestro, but I even kind of like Maestro, so like whatever. So for me, what kind of kept coming to me was essentially the idea that like if I try to talk about all these movies, I'm not going to say anything of value. It's just going to be like filler, and I don't want to. It takes time to make even shitty filler videos, so it's like, do I want to waste my time and yours? No. But I did watch Past Lives, and there was a bit of like backlash towards this movie where I think a lot of people really, really liked it a lot and were like really singing its praises. And then a lot of other people were just like, you must have like a baby brain if this is like your favorite movie of the year. And I thought those people were just being dicks, and some of them were being dicks. But having seen it and having seen some of the praise for the movie, the only feeling I got out of it was like, I think some of the people for whom this movie is like a triumph are people who've just never seen movies like this before. And what they are reacting to is not the film itself, the performances, like this film, but just the idea of watching like a regular movie about human emotions and people and stuff. And I kind of felt this way, like when Everything Everywhere All at Once had come out, was like, man, this movie's weird, but it's not weird. It's not that weird if you've watched a lot of other weird movies. But if you've never ventured into like things that are slightly different or slightly more experimental, you're probably going to be like, holy shit, oh my God, what kind of drugs were they on? What a crazy movie, you know? And Past Lives is not crazy or a movie you had to be on drugs to make, but like, I think in some ways it's like, hey, if you've never sat and watched a 90-minute movie that's just about some sad, inexpressible feeling about the human condition, that might seem fucking revolutionary to you. Like I definitely saw tweets of people being like, I've just never seen a movie like this that just does this about these people's feeling. And I was like, yeah, the medium of film is like 100 and something years old. They have made a lot of movies that do exactly this thing. And so if you watch it, I think if you've like seen more movies or if you're even into that type of movie, like I kind of am, the feeling I got out of it was like, oh, this is cool. There's stuff I like in this, but I didn't think it was like spectacular. I wasn't like, holy shit, you know? If you haven't seen Past Lives, it's essentially like apparently like a very autobiographical, I'm not sure the exact extent to how autobiographical it is, but a very autobiographical story about the director Celine Song, about basically like this guy that, you know, in some way was almost like her soulmate when she was like a teenager living in Korea, and that she moves to America and like they have sort of like a long distance kind of like connection for a bit, and then like they fall out with each other, and then she gets married, and then eventually he comes to the States to visit her, and it's this, he's clearly held a candle for her this whole time, and she doesn't know how she feels about it, and she has a husband now and stuff, and it's like the first half of the movie, all of this stuff about like their connection when they're young, up until the point that they stop talking, I thought was like really good. I was really into it. And then when it kind of does a bit of the time jump and she's married, he comes back, the rest of it to me seemed like I was watching like not even a play, but like a play being workshopped. Like I sort of felt as if this was like, I have an idea for a story. Here's what I've got so far. Let's just kind of like riff. And then later you go and you rewrite it and sharpen it and make it like good. And then I was like, oh, this doesn't do that for me at all. Like, I didn't think it was, I want to be very clear. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I don't want to call it overrated, but there is so much in the second half of the film, the parts that people seem to have taken to the most, that to me just felt like, for a movie that's supposed to be so raw and like real and honest and true, it felt very fucking unrealistic. And not in a, I don't mean unrealistic like they get into like kind of magical realism or something like that. I just mean that like there's literally like one of the big essential scene of the movie is the two main characters like getting a drink together with her husband. And John Magaro, I think, the guy from fucking First Cow and Big Short, is like, to me, sort of the MVP of the movie because his part is so fucking stupid. He's just sort of this like nerdy white guy that she's married to, who's just like, I hope I'm not standing in the way of your actual real first true love, and I'm just a green card marriage. So I'll be very permissive about this guy that you love since you were a teenager coming to hang out with you. This is fine. And like, there's this entire scene that unfolds of like them speaking in Korean to where he can't understand them. And he's just sitting there. And the longer the scene goes on and the more their conversation feels like so kind of like faux poetic and stuff, the more I was like, what the fuck is even, I guess I'm someone who tends to be kind of like conflict driven in story. And like, there's like conflict, but it felt kind of like, but it didn't feel sort of like the intensity of like, this is kind of a crazy raw thing to be happening. Like, you're just hanging out, getting drinks with your husband and this guy that you've, technically probably loved like forever. And like, it's not really like a love story. It feels more like a movie that's just sort of like about mourning, like a life that you didn't have. Like what her life had been like if she didn't come to America. What if she didn't like change and do all this stuff? So in that way, it's essentially just kind of like a artier version of like Sliding Doors or something, And again, I thought it was cool. I thought it was like fine. I thought some of the stuff for me that was like the best is like the part where they're kind of apart, but they're only communicating through like Skype. It's like in like the year 2008 or whatever, and she's on like an old MacBook Air, and just hearing the Skype noise. I know this sounds kind of silly, but it's like, I like that we are now in a period of time where stuff from like 10 or 15 years ago, like feels like has like a period feel to it. Like, sometimes you watch movies set in the 70s and there's just certain things about the 70s that are like, oh yeah, the 70s, like the sort of analog, like the way a needle on a record feels and stuff, at this sort of like warmth. And to me, making movies set like in 2007 or 2008, and then making you hear like MySpace noises and stuff like that, to me, that's like, oh yeah, like, although I'm petrified of the fact that I'm getting older and things from that long ago are a long time ago, when a movie can show those things as being old things, it does hit like it scratches like a weird nostalgic part of my brain of like, when I can see an old movie and I see what type of phone someone's using, and I'm like, I remember having that phone, stuff like that. That stuff felt really real to me. I don't know, something I can't exactly describe it, but something about watching someone have like a really sort of like powerful, like yearning type interaction that you would see in a Wonka Wai movie, but seeing it happen over Skype on an old, like pre-Retina MacBook Air. I was like, yeah, this is my shit. This is for me. But then by the time the husband shows up and stuff, like, I think Greta Lee, like the lead, is like a very talented actress. I think she's quite good in this. And she, like, I feel like everybody in it makes the best of what it is, but what it is just feels kind of like unfinished and slight to me. So that was sort of like, okay, I don't feel like, I felt pretty bad the fact that I had gone this far without seeing it, of all the Best Picture nominees. Then I watched it and I was like, no, this is exactly the sort of movie that I miss all year and then don't watch until June of the next one, So it did feel good to at least get that like off of my list or whatever. But in terms of serious fucking movies, I also watched Aquaman 2. I watched Aquaman 2, or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And hey, not a bad movie. Let's be clear, not a very good movie, but not quite as fun or audacious, I think, as the first Aquaman, but in some other ways more bugfuck insane and more just like ridiculous, that how much this movie cost and how much they blew on James Wan just sort of being like, whatever, I have some ideas, I want to have fun with this. And then all the weird tinkering and stuff. I think the parts of Aquaman that are bad is just like, it tries very hard to be like a broad comedy, and almost none of the comedy is funny. Like it's very just like, oh, haha, oh, I'm supposed to laugh now. Oh, okay, great. So I didn't like that type of shit. But like the actual movie itself is like pretty decently structured, pretty entertaining. Definitely, has like some kind of fun action, and some of the visuals are weird. Some of the ideas are very weird for a movie of this size and scale. And hey, all told, it made like $500 million. It's like the most successful DC movie since the last Aquaman, I think. I'm not going to look that up, but I think it was something similar to that metric. And I thought it was fun. I don't know. Like, I thought it was a fun movie to watch on a Friday night on HBO Max. It was not something I would go out of my way to watch, but all I kept thinking throughout the movie was, this is going to go so fucking hard on TNT for the rest of forever. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is gonna be a movie that like, oh, there's like a game coming on, and I had to turn to it, and like I'm catching the last 15 minutes of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. That is its destiny. And there's a part of me that just has a soft spot for that kind of movie, that kind of disposable, rewatchable, empty calories, Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. on cable television vibe. And it's kind of rare that you see that movie happen in real time. It's rare that oh, this is going to go hard on TBS Superstation in the future. But this one 100% is just that. Special shout out to Patrick Wilson, who is incredible in the movie, way better than the movie really deserves. And I love actors who can take things that are like not very serious and take them seriously without seeming like they're overdoing it. Like Patrick Wilson kind of finds a really good pocket of like, I know I'm playing a character named fucking Ocean Master, but I can make this more than it is. I know I have the goods, so I like that. Aquaman 2 was kind of fun. Then I watched The Beekeeper, the Jason Statham movie, which was really rad. It's like 100 minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. Jason Statham's a beekeeper, and Felicia Rashad is like a woman who's like taking him in. They have sort of a master gardener, I guess, type of like relationship, except minus the white supremacy and the sex. And she gets swindled by this incredibly elaborate and cartoonish like digital fishing ring. Like it's like this like a cross state line corporation that like fishes and scams people or whatever. They steal a bunch of money from her, a charity she runs. She kills herself. Jason Statham, she's like the only woman that's ever like been decent to him or helped him with anything. And she is dead, and like her daughter is an FBI agent, and they think Jason Statham did it, but then they look up his prints and stuff, and it's my favorite thing you hear in a movie is that we ran the guy's prints, and it's like he doesn't exist. He's a ghost. Every time someone does that in a movie, I'm like, oh fuck, that's like so lazy, but it always works. Like, all right, who is this guy? What's his background? What's his real deal? I want to know. That just pops me every time. Like it's like he doesn't exist. No birth certificate. No jobs. No credit cards. Like he must be a badass who's just trying to live a quiet life, and they've interrupted that, and now he has to shoot a bunch of people. So the movie definitely has that sort of like John Wick Part 1 type of like structure and pacing. And it turns out Jason Statham is not just a beekeeper. He is a beekeeper. Dramatic pause. This secret organization of extra governmental super soldier type people. Maybe not super, there's no superpowers. Who like operate outside the system. The beekeepers protect the hive. Throughout the fucking movie, Jason Statham just says shit about bees. He's just like, I'm a beekeeper. We protect the hive. And then it's like, okay, yeah, no, we get that you have bees. And it's like, oh, they don't know that that's like a metaphor. He's like actually talking about the deeper thing. So throughout the movie, as like this conspiracy gets bigger and bigger, and like Josh Hutcherson is like the villain. He's like this spoiled brat, rich kid who is running the scam through a different company. And like Jeremy Irons is like this ex-CIA spook who has to like be his fixer and doesn't want to, but he like really likes the dude's mom. Who ends up being a very powerful woman. But the whole movie is like Jason Statham just beating the shit out of fucking people and shooting them and lecturing them about how bad it is to steal from the elderly. And like the first time he gives a lecture, I was like, yeah, it's true. But the fifth time, it was like, oh, he's gonna give like a lecture to every individual person he meets about how bad it is to steal from the weakest among our society, because that's what beekeepers do. They protect the hive. And it just it's a real nice meat and potatoes. The action's good. Statham's very good. The way that twists are laid out is pretty good. And like my thing about the movie is they held back so much of the Beekeeper lore and mythology, and I kept waiting for a scene where someone would just break down exactly how this organization works, and then Statham would end up breaking down and telling someone like, here's how I joined, here's why I left. They don't do any of that shit. It's very just boom boom boom, let's get out of here. And the whole time I was like, they have to make like 6 sequels now. I have to see more movies about the Beekeepers. Statham can come back or not. They can get someone else to play a new Beekeeper. I want to find out how he became a Beekeeper. I want to know like everything about, like, I want the Beekeeper organization to get fleshed out the way the hotels and the coins and shit happened to John Wick. Like, I need 5 or 6 more Beekeeper movies, and I hope to fucking God they actually happen. And then after that, I'm not gonna talk about it very much because there's nothing to say really. But I watched Mea Culpa, the new Tyler Perry movie on Netflix. I reviewed it for Baltimore City Paper, so next week there will be a review about that out. But it was one of the worst movies I've ever watched, one of the worst movie-going experiences I've ever had. And by movie-going, I mean opening my MacBook in bed felt like I had to like get in a car or like walk to see this bullshit. And it was just, it's fucking terrible. I really, really hated it. It's like and I'm someone who has like a soft spot for Tyler Perry, especially like the Medea stuff. His non-Medea movies are usually completely unwatchable, and this is like the worst. It's like, what would happen if Tyler Perry made like a sexy 90s erotic legal thriller? You might want to blow your brains out. That's what would happen. It's like a really shitty version of like 6 or 7 Michael Douglas movies that I like. And it's just bad. This is Kelly Rowland's in it, and Trevante Rhodes, who is having a horrible career post Moonlight. Just every fucking thing he gets is just garbage, and this is no exception. And so much of the movie is just about how like you shouldn't date biracial men with white moms. I feel like that's like the actual lesson of the story is just like, don't marry a man who's half white and his mom is the white one. I know, not really germane to the way we talk about things in this podcast, but I feel like a lot of people who know a lot of biracial people tend to agree that if you're biracial and your mom's the white one, that you are probably some kind of devil. And it's just very funny to see Tyler Perry make that the meat of a movie about a woman defending an alleged murdering artist. That like the guy who might be a murderer is less bad in the movie than like the guy with the white mom. Crazy shit. Such a fucking bad movie. I was like texting my group chat like when I got to the big twist, and I was just like, he needs to go to prison. Like, we need to take him away. I consider myself an abolitionist, but we should keep prison open just for Tyler Perry. Bad movie. But I will have a full review of that in Baltimore Beat next week. I'll link it on the next episode. Fuck, what a terrible movie. Then the only other movie I watched, in terms of other things that I had to review, I reviewed Kung Fu Panda 4. I saw that a couple nights ago. I wrote that review for Looper. I'll link that in the description below too. I thought it was fun. I'd only seen like the first Kung Fu Panda, and I didn't want to watch the other 2. So I watched like some lore videos or like some explainers about them, so I wouldn't be like completely in the dark. Like, not like Kung Fu Panda 4 has like deep mythology or something, but I thought it was a fun movie. The press screening I went to was also like a public screening for like some local karate group. So there's a bunch of kids doing like karate demonstrations to the Mortal Kombat theme before the movie. That was pretty rad. And the movie was really fun. I mean, I don't know how many more they can really make, but maybe 2 or 3 more. Jack Black really has a blast with them. They're very fun. Even if like the general, even there's a sort of a broadness to the themes and shit, and like in a very obvious kind of almost not preachy, but almost like insulting a level of simplicity. But the action's fun. It's heartfelt. It's sincere. They somehow had an Aquafina character they didn't hate, so that's that's an achievement right there. So yeah, watch that. That review's in the description below. I don't have a lot to say about the movie. I also watched Wonka finally, and I quite liked it. I actually really enjoyed Wonka. It is not as good as either of the Paddington movies, like not even kind of close. And I did not want it to be a musical. And I'm so sick of, there's so many musicals coming out now, and so many stealth musicals. But some of the songs are okay. Some of them are dog shit. Some of them are like really fucking bad. But the number one thing I saw people dunking on with this movie was just Timmy. Like, why is Timothée Chalamet playing a young Willy Wonka? It makes no sense. He doesn't fit at all. And like he doesn't fit with like any of the rest of the cast. And like the rest of the cast is like pretty spirited. Like Hugh Grant is like surprisingly good as like the one Oompa Loompa in the movie. Olivia Colman is really good as one of the villains. Patterson Joseph as like Slugsworth is like an incredible. He's really dialed in on this one. Keegan-Michael Key is in it as like a crooked cop who gets paid off in chocolate. It's like fun. It's a fun, heartfelt movie to me. Like it's a little bit weird. Like I said, the music's not all great. Some of the structure's a little bit weird. It feels like a little bit longer than it probably needs to be. A little more involved than it needs to be. But I thought Timmy was really good. And like watching this in between having seen Dune Part 2 and then seeing Dune Part 2 again, I really feel like Timmy's like he's like a real movie star. I feel like he's really going to kind of carry the torch. I've kind of been on board with him since The King. I've been like, this kid actually I think has the goods. And every movie since I've been like, yep, he has the goods. He's it. And I thought seeing the like dichotomy between his work in Wonka and his work in Dune, I was like, yeah, see, like he has range. I mean, it's weird. I don't think I could probably name like 9 other actors that would have picked over him to play Wonka in this movie if someone gave me the script and like, who's Wonka in your mind? Well, I didn't think of Timmy, but there's something about what he creates here that really did it for me. Like it's weird, but it's not too weird. It's on like its own kind of wavelength that's separate than everyone else in the movie. But I found it way more fascinating and endearing than like Johnny Depp's fucking fake Michael Jackson impression thing. I mean, it's nowhere near what Gene Wilder did with it, but it's like the character is different in this movie, you know? It's a different part of his life. But if you get a chance to see Wonka, check it out. I think it's actually pretty sweet. Maybe not. I saw a lot of people I follow on Letterboxd who were like, fuck this movie. But I thought it was nice. I thought it was kind of quaint. So the only other thing left to get into is Dune Part 2. So I saw Dune again. I really wanted to see it in legit IMAX, because as I've said in other episodes and other things, there's a Regal across the street from my apartment. They do IMAX, but it's not real fucking IMAX. You all know this. And I had seen Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. I saw it in Dolby in Georgetown, and then I wanted to see it again in real IMAX, but I didn't have time to go to like a real IMAX place, so I saw it at the Regal, and I paid like, it was like $23, some crazy shit, for like the first, like a matinee, like the first show of the day on a weekday. There's 3 people in there, and it was not like their IMAX screen is like not very big, and I'm not even certain it was even like the IMAX like rate aspect ratio and stuff. I was very angry about that. So after that, I'm like, I'm only going to go see IMAX if I can actually get out to the Udvar Hazy. It's the only like legit IMAX theater like in the area that's even left if I want to go all the way out to near Dulles Airport. Or I can probably go to the AMC in Tyson's Corner in Virginia or the one in Alexandria. They both offer like the laser IMAX shit, like, which is like more legit. So I resubscribed to AMC A-List because I realized that 1 month of AMC A-List was actually cheaper by like 15 cents or something than getting 1 ticket to the IMAX version of Dune Part 2. So my plan was I was like, oh, I'll go see Dune Part 2, and then fuck, I can also go see, they still had Tenet, like they re-released a Tenet. But that's like 2 nearly 3-hour movies back to back. And the way the shows were scheduled, the way my work schedule was, it was impossible to do. And it really bummed me out because I really wanted to do that. But I did have time just for Dune. So I went and saw Dune. And at first I was kind of like, fuck, because the IMAX screen at the Tyson's is not that big. It's big, but it's not that big. It didn't feel, you know, have you ever been to the one, you know, like one of those, like the ones that really feel like you're like looking at a fucking building? Like the Udvar Hazy around here, like that is like that's a legit IMAX screen. It's like one of those things that's fucking gargantuan. Like it actually kind of makes you nervous if you're afraid of heights, like that kind of screen. This is not that. It's just bigger, kind of bigger than I think the Regal one. But the presentation was really strong. Visually it looked good. The sound and stuff was good. And it did use the taller, so the 70 millimeter IMAX version of Dune Part 2, I think is in like the 1:43 to 1 aspect ratio. The movie, if you just go see it anywhere else, is in scope. It's like 2:39 to 1, so it's like just like that kind of wider frame. But then if you see the AMC laser IMAX, it's like a 1.9 to 1. So it's like not as tall as the quote unquote real IMAX, but it's not as like wide as the scope one. And like I thought it just looked good. I think that the way Greg Fraser like kind of composed the shots with Villeneuve for this is like they were able to make it in such that like if you see the scope thing, you're not missing anything in the frame. If you see one of the taller aspect ratios, you're getting more, but you're not getting necessarily more information. It's just more scale. It just feels bigger, kind of. And I was quite a fan of it because I was like, this actually, I was sometimes seeing stuff in IMAX or stuff that was shot for IMAX, but not seeing it in IMAX. You feel like you're missing out. But this was actually kind of like, I want to see it again. And like, I want to go out to the OVRZ at some point soon. I'm also considering going to see it in 4DX because I saw a joke about someone being like, do I want to go see Dune Part 2 in 4DX? And I was like, fuck, I kind of do actually. I think I might do that. So stay tuned for that at some future episode. But anyway, the movie itself. In my review of Dune Part 2, I talked about the film and I talked about how I felt like I was so beguiled by the movie's blockbuster ambition that I didn't have very much to say to me about the themes of the movie and like the deeper philosophical type shit that the book wrestles with. And the main thing I think I ended my review saying was that I just think the third act rules too hard. It's too badass. It's too cool for the themes to really hit home effectively. And I made some stupid joke about how like every time, once people see this, TikTok is going to be riddled with fan edits of Paul Atreides set to like Cardi's verse from Carnival, the Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign song. And I am not exaggerating when I have seen no less than like 40 TikToks doing exactly that, cut exactly the way I envisioned it. So like I had my own Spice vision of this and it came true and I feel gross about it. But having seen the movie and then like wrestled with it and then talked to other friends who'd seen it and having a bunch of fun conversations about the movie, and then seeing people kind of analyzing themselves and stuff, like I felt more like, okay, there are ways that the movie wrestles with these ideas that are impressive that maybe I overlooked or wasn't giving them much credit for, quite frankly. So I was like, we'll see how I feel in the second viewing. And in the second viewing, I think I liked the movie even more, but I feel even more strongly that everything that happens after fucking Paul drinks the water of life is just so much, it's just so fucking cool that I don't necessarily want to say it undermines the themes, but it does feel kind of like, okay, here's what I want to get at. I've seen there's been some people online getting dunked on hardcore for missing the point of Dune and being like, oh, Paul's so cool. It's so cool to see him become who he's meant to become. I think like Soups, that kind of annoying superhero movie influencer guy, I had a tweet like that and people were like, you fucking idiot. You have no media literacy. He's not the hero. He's the villain of Dune. Da, 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 da. And like people had been having this kind of very flattened argument about, it's like the way to show that you're smart about Dune is like, no, he's not the hero. He's the villain, which I think is like an oppositely wrong perspective. Like I think watching the movie and looking at Paul as a hero is wrong, but I think watching it and looking at him as a villain is also wrong because neither of those two things is like really how he's presented in the story. And a lot of the arguments were just people, if you watch Dune and you didn't understand what was really going on, you're just a fucking dummy, and they beat it over the head with it. It's not a subtle movie. And I was like, yeah, no, I agree with that. It's literally every time they cut to Chani, Zendaya's character, they may as well have her holding up a placard being like, Paul, stop, this is bad. I do not approve of what's happening, and neither should the audience. However, if you spend a bunch of parts of your 2.5 hour movie being like, you can't do this, people are going to die, you can't do this, people are going to die, you don't go down this path, oh my God. And then the last part of the movie is just him fighting a bunch of other evil people we don't like from the movie, beating the literal shit out of them and blowing them up and stuff and having them get eaten by sandworms and stabbing them. I'm not saying that it's okay to read him as a hero in that context, but it's like, it kind of reminds me essentially of like Quentin Tarantino's argument against Taxi Driver in cinema speculation, where he's like, if you wanted this to be a treatise on violence on screen and movies like Death Wish, why is it just like Death Wish? Like, there are ways you could have told this story that would have made Travis Bickle more repugnant and less easy to root for. But you didn't. You chose to. Every decision in that movie is designed to make, like, I'm not trying to shut on Taxi Driver necessarily, but like the movie is not that different than fucking Death Wish. Like it is, but not that morally different, you know? So watching this, the thing that kind of stuck with me was just like, you can say, I understand that the story is presenting all these things about Paul and how like he doesn't want to do this, and ultimately the decision he makes is a semi-tragic one. But so many of the arguments people were having when they were recreationally dunking on people who were reading the movie wrong, a lot of them were just talking about stuff from the book. Well, in the book, it's this. Okay, but they're not talking about a book. They went to go see a movie. 2 fucking movies, actually. 2 whole fucking movies. And if you need to go read an entire book to get context for an argument, that has nothing to do with the movie that got made. Do you know what I mean? Or people were talking about, not even just, you haven't read Dune the book, so you don't get it. People being like, you haven't read the other 5 books. You don't know where it goes. What the fuck does that have to do with this movie? You know, quite frankly, like if your argument is, well, in Dune Messiah, a book that came out later and then it still has not been adapted, that has no bearing on the movie that these people saw. Do you know what I mean? Like it's if you're arguing with someone and there's homework involved in them getting something, you're making fun of their media literacy. And obviously some of these people are really fucking dumb. Some of these people really did not understand what they were watching. I'm not disputing that. But I felt like people were being weirdly, I felt like didn't even know it was getting away scot-free for this. I felt like very few people were like, well, there are some things he did in the film that would help these wrong readings. It was just like, no, he made it so obvious, and if you don't get it, you should just kill yourself or whatever. And I was like, man, I mean, here's the thing. As I said earlier, I have not seen Zone of Interest, but one of the discussions around that film that I found interesting is like the idea that the movie is filmed and framed and presented in a way that is designed to not sensationalize the story in any way. Like it's meant to be this very flat, unexciting depiction of this stuff. And it kind of goes back to like Michael Haneke's argument that Schindler's List is a really immoral movie because Spielberg is essentially very influenced in some ways by like Leni Riefenstahl, and here he's making a movie about the Holocaust, and he's using these like kind of emotionally manipulative storytelling techniques and stuff, and they're like making a movie about this type of thing at all in some ways stylizes it and glorifies it and is like wrong or whatever. And I don't know that I necessarily believe in that, but I understand like the argument that like there are certain things that if you depict them using the tools of cinema and using the tools of the storytelling that makes things exciting or fun or satisfying, that it can be at odds with what you think you're trying to say. And I think part of that just comes from the fact that, look, Dune is a complicated, layered, there's a lot of shit in that book that it just couldn't fit in a movie. Couldn't fit into 2 fucking movies, right? And to get 2 blockbuster level movies made to adapt this one book, you cannot financially, realistically do that and not in some way make it a satisfying sci-fi action blockbuster. Okay? Ultimately, you're answerable to capital or whatever, and you are making a movie that people are going to pay to see that cost hundreds of $1 millions to make. Forget all the people being like, oh, this is cheaper than the Marvels. This is cheaper than, it's still really fucking expensive. It's still a very expensive movie. Ultimately, if you had made it more ponderous, more anticlimactic, more disappointing, like if you ended Dune genuinely making the audience feel sort of the way that you're, I guess, expected to feel about what Paul has done and what has happened, that would be like bad. Like maybe it would be good from a quality perspective. Maybe anyone would look at that and be like, wow, it's very daring that they made a movie that's that much of a bummer, that challenging, that dark. What's the word I'm looking for? Combative, kind of. I might have said combative twice already. I don't know. But it's a movie. People are gonna be expected to go fucking pay money to see this. And if at the end of 2.5 hours, after already giving 2.5 hours a few years ago to part 1, if the movie does not end with Paul Atreides murking the Harkonnens and beating Feyd-Rautha in a knife fight and making the fucking Emperor kiss the ring and all this shit, it's like people would be fucking pissed, and you would never get the money to make Dune Messiah. So on some level, I'm not saying this is a criticism of the movie. Like, I know that I've framed it as a criticism that I think the movie is too badass, but I don't care because I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very impressive movie. I want to go see it again and again. Like, I'm really, really into it, but I don't like people beating others over the head about the movie and acting like those people are just dumb and they're not smart or they're not deep enough to understand it. And like completely not even engaging with the fact that like they did make the end of that movie really rad. Like I don't think it's fair to pretend otherwise. Like there are ways I felt like they could have ended the movie nearly the same way that would have had more impact. I mean, to me, I don't know. I've seen some people be like, I thought it was so devastating. I didn't fucking feel that either time I watched the movie. Like, even though the movie hammers you over the head with, hey, the minute Paul goes down this path is only going to lead to the death of billions with a B people. Okay. I feel like part one, his initial visions where he's like freaking out in the tent and stuff. Like the way Timmy yells award my name and shit. Like, oh my God, it's so powerful. It's so good. And then the second part two, the whole movie, he's like, yo, I can't do this shit, man. Like, it's just going to be bad. I can't go down there. All these people are going to die. And like the movie keeps pushing them further to the point where it's like he kind of has to do this. I like I said, I haven't revisited the book yet. I think I'm just going to read the whole fucking series soon. I don't have anything else going on in my life. But so much of the analysis I've been seeing is very colored in by extra nuance and shading that is not in the movie. That's from the book. It's from knowledge of the book. It's from analyses of the book and texts people have written about this book over the last several decades. So I don't like that people are insisting like, no, that's all there. It's all in the text. Like, not the text of the movie. It's there. I'm not saying like it's not. Like I said, it's very obvious what Villeneuve's trying to do. And I honestly actually think that a lot of the things they've pruned from the book to make the movies work are smart. Like there's tons of things I've seen people being like, how come we didn't see the Guild Navigators? How come this? How come that? How come we don't get to see Aaliyah as a baby? Like, bro, 5 hours and they only covered the one book. I think some stuff's got to go. Okay. It's a very dense story. It's not all going to have room in the movie. So I respect that. I just think that Paul's journey in the movie, I think the way Timmy plays the character, there's all these different factors that make him very sympathetic, very kind of like easy to kind of relate to. And so much of the way people are like, he's obviously not a hero. Like he literally decides to get vengeance and like, and manipulate these people and stuff. It's like, yeah, of course. I'm not saying he's like a good guy or whatever. But if you watched like the fucking Star Wars prequels and like when Anakin goes to kill those kids, when he goes to execute Order 66, if they had made the scene of him going to kill the kids look really fucking cool, that would be a bad creative decision to me. Like that would be a bad way to show like Anakin has gone to the dark side. Like if they did that scene and like you could easily make fan edits of it set to like Playboy Cardi rapping, that to me would be a failing on the film's part. Like no one should come out of seeing Anakin murder children and being like, he cleared though, like he really ate or whatever. And I feel like people are blaming the audience and I don't know, society for this being read the way it is. But society didn't make this fucking movie. Society didn't draw these storyboards. Society didn't previs these sequences. Like this is a movie. Filmmakers made like a bunch of people, thousands of people worked on it. And the vision that you're heaping on to Denis Villeneuve, like, oh, this great auteur, all this different stuff. If you're going to heap all of this praise on him for all the things that work and that you like, it seems weird to me then to like not want to critique it at all. Do you know what I mean? There's obviously been some criticism of the movie there's a handful of people on TikTok I've seen doing the like, actually this movie is a white savior movie and here's why and stuff like that. And just like making weird kind of bad faith arguments for engagement. But I've also seen people try to make like sort of genuine criticisms of the film's, the way the film doesn't really actually make space for the representation of the cultures that inspired the Fremen in the movie. That like, they talked about how like there's so many specific things from the book that are very specific to like Arabic and stuff that are not in the movie. And people were defending it, being like, well, it's the future. Why would the Arabic still exist? It's okay, but then in the first movie, then why do Paul and Yue speak fucking Mandarin to each other? Like, that survived, but Arabic didn't. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of different things that they had to do in these movies to try to like de-problematic it to people, to try to avoid certain critiques, to make the movie like clearer, I guess, from like a through line perspective, right? And I think that having critiques of those decisions, it's like, hey, those are the decisions. You're allowed to critique these things. And I don't like that those arguments are kind of sometimes being lumped in with people who are making very broad, flat observations about the movie. Do you know what I mean? I think what makes this movie really cool to me, like I mentioned earlier, is that it made a lot of money. It's a big thing. It's really punctured the consciousness. It's like the only really big movie coming out for a while. So lots of people are getting into it. They're obsessive about it. It's a really fertile ground, I think, that people are going to discover these books now, and they're going to debate all these different things. I think it's really good. I like when a movie captures everyone at once. It's one of the things I like about, when a movie, like a big movie, does well, because I like the idea that, hey, we're all kind of sharing this. We all went and saw this. We're all talking about it together and stuff. I'm really into that. But that specific strand of the conversation around it, about people just gleefully dunking on anyone they saw say anything that was like less than, I don't know. It's there's certain things that people say in conversation to prove that they're smarter than you, but that you hear them all the time. So you're like, okay, this is like so fucking, like the kind of people that do the like, actually Frankenstein was the name of the scientist, not the monster or whatever, like that type of shit. And you're like, okay, fucking, what do you want a fucking cookie? Like that type of thing. To me, the number of times I saw people be like, actually, pushes up glasses. Paul's the villain of the movie. He's the villain. He's the villain. Like, can you people not fucking understand that someone could be the protagonist of a story and not be the hero and not be the villain, and could just be like a really like a flawed person? And like so many people are arguing against that, and like you can't just call it flawed. Like, well, he's responsible for like, essentially responsible for like 60 billion people dying. I'm like, but that doesn't fucking happen in the movie. It's implied to happen in the future in another movie. It's confirmed to happen in a book that people who watch the movie may not have read. So like you can't, I understand that the movie makes it clear that him going on this path is going to lead to those things happening, but they don't fucking happen. And the way the movie ends with like, him resigning to this fate of, well, I've done it, it's too late, these things are going to happen, doesn't really feel that way. In a weird way, it's like Oppenheimer, not that these movies are really that similar or whatever, but Oppenheimer ends with Oppenheimer kind of realizing like, fuck, me having helped create this bomb is like doomed Earth, like in the world, like we're all fucked. And he just says that. And you really feel it in the way the movie is structured. And obviously what we know about history, it's really effective. Like the last few minutes of Oppenheimer are like actually genuinely kind of harrowing and like scary. And you're like, fuck, oh my God, yeah, he's right, fuck. The last couple minutes of Dune, he like wins a dope ass fucking knife fight. He fucking makes Christopher Walken get on his knees and kiss his ring. He's fucking the emperor of the universe. He's about to be fucking married to Florence Pugh. He's not even that pressed about his girl being mad about it, because he's like, I see the future. She's going to be totally cool with this eventually. And me and all my guys are going to go ride on all of our ops right now. Like the way that is framed is not framed like this is this horrible thing. And like, I'm not exactly certain how I would have done it differently or whatever, but I do feel like, I think it is disingenuous and borderline fucking insulting to act like every single person who is having difficulty understanding or reading him as a hero or like an uplifting figure or something, they're not all just idiots. Some of that is on the fucking movie. I'm sorry, some of that is on the fucking way the film is made. And I don't think it's unfair to say that. And I want to be very clear, just in case anyone gets all fucking weird in the comments or whatever, starts sending me stuff. I love the movie. I'm a huge fan. I basically personally have no qualms. I've even seen very well written critiques of the film where people say things where I go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's actually a really beautiful observation. I don't even care. I just really liked it. I don't know. Maybe years from now, I'm not going to feel the same way. Maybe 6 months from now, I'm not going to feel the same way. But right now, having seen the movie twice, I really fucking liked it. I cannot wait to see it again. I love talking about it to people. I love talking about it to my friends. I'm on board. Like, I'm Dune pilled, whatever. But that doesn't mean I can't point out, like, hey, some of this shit is a little bit maybe weird. Maybe it's a little bit off. And it's a normal thing, I think, to point that out. I know some people are going to strongly disagree with that and like there's a lot of things in the movie that happen where like, this could not make it more clear that he's the bad guy now. And I'm like, yes. But like in pro wrestling, if a character is like a heel and the audience is supposed to boo them because they're bad and they do bad things, but then they beat the shit out of someone that the audience likes less, they will get cheered. This is just like a very basic psychology. So the idea that it's like, oh, he's turned to the dark side, he's doing something really bad. He even basically says like, I'm a Harkonnen, we have to be like the Harkonnens to do this. But then he just does a bunch of rad shit to a bunch of people we fucking don't like. I'm sorry, like you can't dispute that. I don't know what they could have done differently to make the movie end on a note that was more like solemn or like kind of like more, with more weight to it than just the fucking shot of like Chani like running off or whatever. Because a lot of people are reading that as like she's hurt because he left her for a white girl, and it's like, no, I mean she's hurt for very different reasons. But the fact that many people are reading it that way is like, well, hey, you framed the last thing that he does that's bad as being like, I'll marry your daughter, and like cutting to her looking sad. You know what I mean? Like, you guys frame this like it's a love triangle thing, not like it's he's no longer the man that he said he would stay. He's changed. He's become what he said he did not want to become. There's got to have been a way to end this in a way that would have been not necessarily more definitive, but more underlining. The line when he says, "Without let's not look at what should we do?" And he's like, "Deliver them to paradise." Like the way he delivers that line is a really good line reading. It really is just this resignation of, well, can't get the toothpaste back in the tube, But again, it doesn't hit the way it's supposed to. It's one of those things where I'm like, I understand intellectually, I know that this means this, but emotionally, what the movie is making me feel is different than that. And it feels weird to deny that, for us to collectively act like that's not real. You know what I mean? So, Dune Part 2. Really rad movie. I really, really liked it. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely see it. You know what I mean? If you guys have any problems with the movie, talk to me about them in the comments, obviously. I am curious to see more of what, now that the movie's been out, what people think. I fucking jawed a lot tonight so far. Yeah, okay. I think we got time for a couple of questions. Okay. Question time. Question 1. Rob asks, what other movies or TV shows nail that balance between the possibility of the supernatural versus the natural? So in the episode we were talking about True Detective Season 4, and I compared it to Lost, and then I compared Lost to Leftovers, and the way those shows handle dueling interpretations, sort of like that they both they both could be read as being like all these things that are like supernatural and otherworldly versus there's like a realistic explanation for them. And to be honest, I think The Leftovers is the best at that. I can't think of anything else that's even close. This doesn't necessarily count, but I'd seen the trailer today for Sugar, this new Private Eye show for Apple TV that Colin Farrell is in. He's playing John Sugar, a private eye in like Los Angeles. It's written by Mark Protasevich, who wrote the movie The Cell, and it is directed entirely by Fernanda Morales, who directed City of God and The Constant Gardener, and then like almost nothing else of substance that I can think of. But it looks cool. The trailer looks really cool, and like it appears to have some kind of potential genre element to it, kind of like the way that True Detective is presented. And I can't say anything until the show's out and we watch it, but I got the feeling that this might play in that space. And given the writer, given the director and stuff, I'm curious to see how it looks, and I feel like it might operate in that wheelhouse. It might not, but the vibe I got from it was that it might. I'm kind of excited about that. That's the best answer I can give. I can't think of anything else really that's even similar. I wish. It's kind of something I like. And then the only other question we have is from my friend Futura. Hey, question for the next one. I liked that little rant you had about some actors being worse when they're hungry for that Oscar. Who's an actor who you think should have... I can't read. Who's an actor who you think should have their Oscar revoked because they've gotten lazier after fulfilling that need? And then she has a follow-up question, but I'll answer this one first. I couldn't think of any actors when I read this. Like, I can't think of any actors who got an Oscar and then just like sucked or something. But I did think of 2 directors. So Tom Hooper, the guy that directed, got the Best Director Oscar for King's Speech, which again, I want to point out is like a decent, fine movie, but he won an Oscar for it that fucking year. And he's made nothing good since, like literally nothing. Just fucking nothing. And I'm not even just saying this just because of Cats. The guy does not have the goods. And then the other person I thought of, like a year or 2 later, is Michael Hasnavicius. I don't know how to pronounce his name properly. The guy that directed The Artist. Like, that guy made a couple like spy movie parodies, and then this got an Oscar for Best Director, and then has done fuck all since. When I had to look him up because I was like, what the fuck has that guy done since then? And the only thing I saw recently was they did a French remake of the zombie movie One Cut of the Dead. And I was like, I don't want to see him do that at all. I like One Cut of the Dead very much. It's a very good movie. Do not want to see a remake of that. Don't want it to be fucking French. So those 2 to me come to mind. It's like, how did you guys even fucking get in? Like that's, those are the Oscar wins that are always weird. Where you look back at it and you go, that? Really? It was fine. I thought it was fine at the time. No staying power. And then the actual final question, also from Futura. Also, who would that... I really can't read tonight. Also, who that would never be in the running for an Oscar should win an Oscar for the comedy value? Obviously, Adam Sandler is the correct answer, but who's second? Okay, it's very true. Adam Sandler is the correct answer. Comedic performances are not respected at the Oscars, like at all, ever. Like in some ways, I know people are like mad about Ryan Gosling being nominated for an Oscar and not Margot Robbie. But Ryan Gosling's comedic work in Barbie to me is astonishing. And that is why he most likely will not win, because it's more of a funny thing than anything else. But I made a little bit of a list so I wouldn't forget. Because there's actually, to me, this is like an axe I've been grinding since I was like a teenager, is that there are a lot of actors in movies that I love that are comedies. And then like you always have to talk about them like they're lesser. Like people have this vision that comedy is easier, but it's not. Like a really good comedy is just drama, but harder. It's easier, I think, to write a good drama because you just have to kind of create a compelling story, and like that's not an easy thing, but I'm saying comedy, it's like create a compelling story and also be funny. All the things you have to do in a drama, do the same things, but make it funny. That's not a fucking easy task. And I don't know why people act like comedy is just a simple, easy thing. But I have several answers. Eddie Murphy for Coming to America, Eddie Murphy for The First Nutty Professor. Eddie Murphy in both those movies is fucking great. And I know that eventually Eddie Murphy playing 7 people in fat suits got to be kind of like a parody joke thing. But in The Nutty Professor, he literally plays like 7 different fucking people. And it's like really fucking impressive. And people are just like, whatever. It's a joke movie. I'm like, okay, but that's whatever. It's crazy to me that people just don't respect that more. Similarly, I would say Mike Myers in the first Austin Powers. Fucking incredible performance between that and playing Austin and playing Dr. Evil and stuff. One of the greatest comedies ever. Like it holds up so remarkably well. And then I also wrote Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. I hate that Bill Murray only gets respected for like post Lost in Translation stuff of him being kind of like the sullen funny man, because it's like, you really want me to believe that Lost in Translation is a better movie than Groundhog Day? Like, really? We really fucking think that? Well, Groundhog Day is a comedy. Like, yeah, but it's, come on, stop lying to yourself. And then my kind of personal one that I go crazy about is like Steve Carell. His performance in The 40-Year-Old Virgin to me is so much better than his performance in Foxcatcher, but he got an Oscar nomination for Foxcatcher because it's a serious movie, it's sad, and he has a fake nose. Those are the things that the Academy seems to respect more than anything else. Having like a really nuanced, subtly funny, kind of human performance in like this really funny, really heartfelt comedy doesn't fucking matter. Come back and you got a fake nose, loser. So those are my answers to that. Thank you for the question. Very good question. So I think that's it for the week. I was very paranoid that this episode was going to go off the rails and go on way too long. I don't know what the upper limit on like you guys listening is. I feel like anything longer than an hour and a half is like really pushing it. So sometimes when I'm talking, I can see the number. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna, because I do the one take version of this pod, I don't go back and edit out stuff if I go on too long. It really is just sort of like a marathon with myself. Anytime I'm recording, part of me feels like I'm in the ring, and the ref is like telling me to go home, and I'm like, yeah, but let me get my shit in first. I really want to do this moonsault real quick. Sorry. But anyway, that's the episode. Thank you guys for listening. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube and you liked it, please give the video a thumbs up. If you loved it, please subscribe. And then if you hit the little bell icon, you'll get notifications anytime I put out new content, podcast or otherwise. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the comments below. If you have questions that you want me to answer on the air, you can do those in the comments, but you can also email me at armchairauteur@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter, IG, or wherever you can find me. I will answer your questions because that's just what I do. And if you listen to this on any other audio-only podcast platform, please, I don't know, like subscribe or follow or like, or I'm still figuring out the audio part of this shit. Do whatever to show me some love, share me with your friends. Please don't gatekeep me. And yeah, thank you guys again for listening. Hope everyone's doing well. We will talk soon.